I'm doing an audiovisual PhD, which means my thesis is going to be part documentary in the very broadest sense of the word, and part written as well. And I'm doing that in the Department of Film and Creative Writing. So I'm exploring how Birmingham is represented in popular film and television, so interrogating aesthetics of the city in its role as both narrative setting and filming location. And this is across a range of different texts. So as we can see from this slide, Peaky Blinders, Man Like Mabeen, Citizen Khan, Doctors, and I think I've got Zombo there as well, but that's not exhaustive. So I'll be using videographic criticism as one of my main research methodologies, and I'll touch on what that is a little bit later. But I suppose my central question in my thesis is, when does Birmingham play itself? And I hope that my research will both examine and challenge Birmingham's on-screen identity. So this is, as I'm doing it audiovisually, and this event is all about what research looks like, so hopefully this will give you a flavour of what my research both looks and sounds like.
New York is off. You're posted to Birmingham.
Birmingham?
So we went on a canal holiday in Birmingham, and
I've been walking around Birmingham all morning, I don't even like it.
How about give it a chance?
Babe, it's ugly, there's roadworks everywhere.
Yeah, when I first came here, it was just that concrete hell. It was all, pre-bull ring, all of that. And it was that thing where it was like, wow, someone really got a discount on concrete when they built this place.
Birmingham? Shithole!
Just as bad as I expected.
Now, please, enjoy the city. It's my honor to represent.
As you can kind of see from that trailer, I suppose part of my argument is going to be based on the fact that a lot of people have a certain perception of Birmingham. Obviously, that's not exhaustive. It's not universal. But as I'm sure a lot of people who, having studied in Birmingham, who are in this conversation will realise, you say that you're from Birmingham now, or that you've lived in Birmingham, and a lot of people will then say, Peaky Blinders. And that has very much become a kind of go-to response and association with Birmingham. So as we come on to kind of importance and impact, I think that what this research will do, sorry, I made everything complicated for everybody by including videos. So what this research will do will hopefully highlight some of these attitudes that prevail about the second city. And I mean, even the terminology second city, it kind of implies that we are somehow secondary, somehow inferior. Obviously, levelling up is a big part of the political conversation at the moment, so this will contribute to ongoing conversations about regionality and class. So the reason, you may ask, why do we have a drag queen? So this is Something Wong from I think it was the first series, RuPaul's Drag Race UK. And when they had a hometown challenge, she said, well, what's more iconic than the Birmingham Bull Ring? True, maybe for Brummies. But I think also Peaky Blinders is now occupying it's so intertwined now with the city's identity. So hopefully by looking at other programs as well as Peaky Blinders, looking at the commonalities in the narratives, I can start to unravel a little bit about what Birmingham's on-screen identity is, maybe challenge some of what Peaky Blinders represents or alludes to, and the fact that I'm doing this audiovisually, I think is quite unique. Video essays are I mean, that's a term that we can spend ages unpicking, but videographic criticism, it's a growing community in academia, but it is still relatively new. So hopefully this is something quite novel, and hopefully it's quite important for Birmingham, because we're surrounded by screens. The way that we consume media influences our perceptions on so many things in life. So I think it's important to think how it influences our perceptions of place as well as other things. So one of the frameworks that I'm sort of drawing on in my research is this idea of narrative engine and narrative backdrop. So broadly, this plays into what I was talking about with Birmingham's filming location and narrative setting. So setting kind of a little bit goes with engine, where place is kind of a crucial component of a series, which is definitely the case with Peaky Blinders. The photo on the right-hand side is one that I took at the Peaky Blinders Festival in Digbeth a few years ago. And I mean, it very consciously opposes Birmingham to London. But, I think without the Birmingham setting, the Peaky Blinders story just would not be the same. Birmingham is very much a narrative engine for the drama. Narrative backdrop, by contrast, is where the location itself holds no agency over that story. And something that I've argued in kind of ongoing sections of my thesis is that Doctors, which is it's a continuing drama. It's the only one set in Birmingham and I think in the Midlands, but it's only very loosely set here. And I feel that Birmingham is very much a background for Doctors rather than kind of a narrative engine for the stories that unfold. So I'm using that framework quite a lot. And as Mucknut goes on to say, although he's talking about Miami, I think you can apply it very easily to anywhere where something's been filmed, and it helps us understand how space and place intersect with different forms of dramatic storytelling. And for Peaky Blinders, again, this is really interesting because although it's very firmly set here, barely any of it was filmed in the West Midlands, apart from a few scenes at the Black Country Living Museum. You can go on Peaky Blinders tours in Manchester, in Liverpool, where a lot more of it was filmed. But it's so interesting how the city is kind of closely associating itself with this television series when it wasn't actually filmed here. So when does Birmingham play itself? Not too often, actually, but of these three examples, so the Rap Game UK, which is a kind of a reality show where MCs compete to be the best rap artist. Then we've got Man Like Mabeen. That's really great because it's set in Small Heath about a century after Peaky Blinders. I would say that's quite kind of authentic. And Guz Khan, who's from Coventry, is very clear on kind of the authenticity that he's creating in this series. And then we have Zomboat, which is lesser known, but was an ITV2 kind of comedy where the zombie apocalypse hits Birmingham and they try to escape via canal boat because zombies can't swim. So three quite different programs, but I can argue that there are actually kind of similarities in some ways, especially around the concept of grit. And again, going back to Peaky Blinders, it's often described positively as a gritty drama. With the Rap Game UK, it was fascinating that a producer on that actually said that he was going for a premium grit aesthetic, which to me is slightly contradictory. However, yeah, super interesting what he's trying to convey. And I think this idea of escape and moving up, especially through social classes, is very prevalent in a lot of Birmingham-based narratives, perhaps other cities as well, especially post-industrial. But yes, looking at when is it that we actually see Birmingham as Birmingham on screen. The flip side of that is Birmingham masquerading as other places. So even though Peaky Blinders may not have been filmed here, there have been many TV series. Hustle several years ago, the latter series were filmed in Birmingham, but it was doubling for London. And of course, most famously, perhaps Ready Player One. There was actually a hashtag going around Twitter of Spielberg in Brum because he did actually come. And in the film, you can see parts of the Jewellery Quarter in Digbeth. The Film Birmingham website, Film Birmingham, handles all the location permissions for anything that's filmed in Birmingham and the wider West Midlands, has as its kind of tagline on site, explore your canvas. So it's interesting to me to think, well, what does that mean for a city's identity if we're seeing it as a blank canvas? And some of the spaces that we see when it is doubling for London, like in Kingsman 2, the car chase scene was all filmed around the museum. We very rarely see those spaces on screen as Birmingham. So I really like this quote from the start of Ready Player One, which is about a virtual reality, but says it's a place where the limits of reality are your own imagination. So maybe we can apply that to Birmingham as well. Videographic criticism, the way that I'm exploring this, you saw some of that in the trailer, so kind of juxtaposition, multi-screen composition, integrating interviews with existing texts, and I discover things through working in an editing timeline that I just wouldn't if I was just doing a written thesis. And so for me, using the materiality of film and media to kind of comment on film and media is completely logical, and it also will enable me to explore things like accent as well. But this piece, very briefly, it contrasted the introduction of the rap game UK with when The Greatest Dancer was filmed here. So it's looking at how kind of very different Birminghams were presented through these two reality TV shows.
Does anyone know their way to Birmingham?
I do.
They will play it. Sorry.
We're going to Birmingham for an audition for The Greatest Dancer.
Oh my god, I can't believe we're actually here. I know.
Greatest Dancer Studio.
I know.
I think Peaky Blinders has been brilliant for Birmingham, but I think we need to start challenging a little bit about what that gangster narrative is actually about and what it means to associate that so closely with Birmingham. And hopefully, kind of in looking at other texts, we can start to understand how the city is represented, how it represents itself, or how it's represented by others. And hopefully that will have a positive impact.